Valentine's weekend was wild. I think, though, before I get into it, I'm gonna do a couple of things. I'm gonna grab a shower, get dressed, get a cup of coffee, and then we can get into it. Okay, I'm back, and I opted for tea instead of coffee because I think I already had enough coffee for today. So, this weekend was kind of wild, and it all started on Saturday morning, maybe Friday night, with Seattle getting 12 inches of snow. Now, I'm from Minnesota, so 12 inches of snow is no big deal. We have the infrastructure to handle it. But witnessing firsthand that Seattle just kind of leaves their roads unplowed and the sidewalks a mess, and, well, it's not that much fun to walk through. You can see for yourself. Whew. Right, so that was Saturday. Not all bad. I mean, we managed to safely make it to and from Whole Foods, and then we had a lovely dinner of stewed beef with rice and, no, actually, it wasn't rice, it was cabbage. We had some stewed beef with cabbage, and we got a 6-pack of beer, and it was an all-around okay Saturday night. The trouble was Sunday. Now, Valentine's Day is not really a holiday I celebrate, and fortunately neither does my partner. We don't really care that much about it. So we hadn't really planned anything exciting, but I don't know if you guys have seen this at all going around. I'm a weirdo, so I have. But the Target dress challenge. Basically, a month or two ago, I guess Target released a line of prairie-inspired dresses. Very pioneer-esque, you know, a very unusual choice for Target. And I guess enough people thought it was baffling and hilarious enough to buy a couple of these and take some really funny homestead-inspired photo shoots. I will link to the article that Bored Panda did down in the description, so you can have a look at some of those hilarious photos yourself. So anyway, I really like vintage fashion, and I have always been a fan of like Little House on the Prairie or the American Girl stories, especially Kirsten's, because she is from Minnesota. She's Swedish from Minnesota, well, she's from Sweden, but in Minnesota. And I can kind of relate to that because I've got some Scandinavian heritage, and I'm also from Minnesota. So seeing these images of these dresses, like, oh, it did something for me. Something warm and fuzzy, made me all nostalgic, and I needed one. I needed one bad, right? So here's the thing. Target doesn't have many in stock anymore because a lot of people apparently bought these. Fortunately, according to their website, there were some still left at the Target near Pike Place Market, so I was like, come hell or high water, or lots of slush and ice and snow, but I want one. So we kind of putzed around for most of the day on Sunday, and I think it was about 2 o'clock, we're like, okay, well, if we're gonna go and get this taken care of, let's go now. And here's where the story takes a turn. It started off fine, okay? We put our coats on, put our boots on, grabbed our masks, and out the door we went. Everything was fine. We hopped in the elevator. Just not really paying much attention. I'm just sitting here listening to the beeps. Beep, beep, beep. Crash. Our elevator fell about a floor and a half and crashed down into the lobby. And then nothing. It just sat there. And my partner and I looked at each other like, holy crap, did our elevator just break? Did it just drop us? We didn't have any cell service inside the elevator, so we had to use the call button in there, and some dispatch person eventually answered the call, and we told them that we were stuck in the elevator. See, we kind of neglected initially to say that the elevator had dropped us. I think we were so shaken up, it was just like, well, we're stuck here, help. So they got our information and said something to the effect of, okay, well, I'll call back in a bit and update you. Here's the thing, I was trying my level best to stave off a panic attack. I am both claustrophobic and agoraphobic, so that's, all kinds of fun to deal with. And I have pretty much wedged myself into the corner of the elevator, and I'm just trying to breathe. I'm trying to breathe because I'm freaking out. Here's the thing. Even though the elevator had stopped on the first level, there were still 3 more levels down into the parking garages, and I was terrified that at any moment, if we just moved too much, that the elevator would drop us all the way down. Like, I didn't want to take any chances, so I stayed as still as possible and just tried to breathe. But here's the thing, when you're kind of freaking out, time feels kind of wonky. So, what felt like an hour was probably just a few minutes. And so we're calling this dispatch place again, like, hey, can you call emergency services? Can you call somebody to get us out of here? Like, what's going on, right? And I guess, did you know, it's their policy to not call emergency services. If you want to call the cops or the nearest fire station to come and get you out, you can do that yourself. But they don't do it. They won't do it. So we're stuck in this elevator, this broken elevator, with no cell service and really no information about how the fuck we're supposed to get out of there. They did, however, say that they had contacted a mechanic and he was en route, but it would be an hour before he arrived. Okay, it's not the worst case scenario ever. At least somebody was coming, On Valentine's Day, probably on call through the ice and the snow, somebody was coming. I figured he would show up, somebody would help pry the doors open or get the doors open, and we would trot on out of there, merrily go on our way to Target. It wouldn't be a big deal, right? That's not what happened. So we didn't hear back from dispatch after that at all, and nobody called us back to give us an update on what was going on. We had no way of knowing what was happening. We were just stuck there. My partner started taking notes, kind of noting the time that this has happened, how many times we talked to dispatch, what little information we did have, kind of what the elevator had done, how far it had dropped. And so he was in the middle of taking notes, right? And a voice crackles over the speakers, and it's the mechanic. So he identifies himself as working with, I think, Otis, which is one of the big 2 elevator companies. And he says something that to me sounded incredibly ominous. He said, "Don't worry, we'll get you out of there soon." And if this sounds like the setup to a short horror story, you're not wrong. So this is what happens next. Without warning, the display panel inside the elevator goes from 1 to -- and I don't know what that means, and I thought it was weird. So I got my partner's attention, and so we're talking, what does that mean? What's going on? And the mechanic says something again. It's really broken up through the speakers, and we can't quite make it out. And then inside on the elevator panel with all the buttons, the R lights up. Now here's a little context. We have a lovely rooftop space in this building with a lounge, with a fire pit and a big screen TV and like lovely panoramic views of Seattle, the best shot of the Space Needle a resident could hope for. But it's also 18 stories up. So with very little warning, this elevator starts to climb 18 floors. We were already on the first floor. I just wanted to get off the damn elevator, right? I didn't want to go up to the top. I didn't know why this was happening, and naturally, I was freaking out. Because the higher you are, the longer the drop if something goes wrong. Would you like to know if something went wrong? I mean, I guess I don't even know if I need to answer that at this point because clearly something went wrong or I wouldn't be recording this video. So we get up to the top and the mechanic is trying to walk us through some steps that we can take in there. Can we open the doors with the button? Can we select another floor? Can we do this? Can we do that? And nothing, the panel is dead again. We cannot interact with it at all. Without warning. I don't know if he tried to just bring the elevator back down or it just happened on its own. I have no idea because we had no warning. We were not informed. The elevator started descending and it was rough. It went from probably the 18th floor to somewhere between 13 and 12 in like the span of a few seconds, and it was rough. Like, I don't know if it was the emergency brake that caught it somewhere between floors or what, but that was the fastest and the roughest I've ever gone down in an elevator, and I've ridden some rickety ass elevators, I'll tell you. And this was the scariest. This was the worst. And by this point, like, my partner was freaking out. I was just still wedged in that corner, holding onto the rail, screaming at the top of my lungs for this guy to just let us out of the elevator. I just wanted the doors to open. I just wanted to get out, you know? I didn't want to fall to my death inside of an elevator. That's not how I want to go on Valentine's Day, you know? So by some miracle, the elevator shimmies back up to the 13th floor and the thing dings. It was the most welcome dinging sound I've ever heard, and suddenly the doors slowly slide open. And I don't know what you would do in this situation, but I didn't waste any time. I pretty much catapulted myself out of the elevator and just collapsed in the hallway. And it took us a good few minutes to catch our breath. And we probably should have just hung out there and relaxed for a minute, but I could not even look at the elevators. I needed to just get out of there, right? So I was like, okay, well, it's a long trek back down to the lobby, but here's the stairwell, so we're going. And once we got down there, we stood there for a few minutes, just, you know, being very shaken up. As you can imagine, the maintenance guy comes out of the other elevator, you know, the one that's supposedly not broken. And he's very concerned. He wants to know if we're all right, if we're hurt, what had happened. So we gave him what information, you know, we could that we had. And then he was like, okay, well, you know, I'm glad you guys are okay. I'm gonna be working on it for a little bit here. I'll, you know, try to figure out maybe what's wrong. And hopefully we can get this resolved. Yeah, so all that happened. And at this point, I don't know what I was thinking, but I still wanted a freaking prairie dress, okay? Like, I don't know if it was just like, okay, well, you know, you go through something very scary and traumatic like that, and then it's like, okay, well, just go back to your apartment now. And no, I didn't want it to be a worthless trip, you know? I didn't want it to be worth nothing. So we actually called the emergency maintenance line for our apartment company, our management company, to just kind of like let somebody know what had happened and that there was somebody on site looking at the elevator. Because, you know, naturally it's snowy and it's a weekend, so none of the staff here came in. So the maintenance guy was like, okay, well, thanks for letting us know, and I will pass that information along to the right people. And we thought that would be the end of it, right? Like, no, okay, so we did our part, we're okay, we're gonna go about our day as best we can. So we did actually make it to Target, and lo and behold, they still have some prairie dresses in stock and they're on sale. So I bought 2 of them, you know, decided to make the whole trip worth it. I bought 2 instead of just the one that I originally wanted. And yes, if you are a keen viewer, if you are a discerning viewer, you're probably asking right now, Mykki, aren't you wearing one of them? I am in fact wearing one of these prairie dresses. They're very comfortable. It's like lounging around in like a nightgown. It's the best work from home outfit I've ever worn. If you've never picked up like a roomy, soft calico cotton dress, like I recommend it. It's, you know, a little bit more fancy than a bathrobe, but just about as comfortable. So I definitely recommend it if you haven't tried it. And this is for all genders. Men should wear dresses too. Everybody should wear dresses. It's one garment. These have pockets. Do you know how impressed I am? Nothing ever has pockets, and these have huge pockets. So good job, Target. Like, oh boy. So that was my weekend. Anyway, like I said, I thought that was going to be the end of the situation. But after we had gotten back from Target, that maintenance guy actually called us back and said that he'd contacted somebody with some elevator company and said they didn't send anybody out. Are you sure? That, like, very much implying that like we were lying or that the whole thing hadn't happened, because like, well, nobody came out, nobody looked at the elevator, so were you even stuck? Did anything even happen? Or, you know, and I mean, I don't know what to make of that. But so we did send an email detailing the whole event to our management company, and they got back to us like very quickly on that actually. And they were very apologetic that had happened, and kind of figured out that this maintenance guy had called the wrong elevator place, like because it was Otis that sent somebody, but then there's another company that I guess they use for repairs, and that's who we had called, and of course they hadn't sent somebody out. It was the wrong place. So that was kind of the situation there, which is good, because my first thought was, oh wow, was our elevator mechanic actually just a ghost? Was this a whole scary supernatural event? Which, you know, of course, I'm a writer, so now I've got ideas twirling around in my brain. But anyway. And then just yesterday, actually, the management crew came up and they brought us a lovely gift basket with chocolates and wine and a very pretty orchid. So that is my Valentine's Day weekend. I hope for all of you that yours was much more pleasant and far less traumatic. Here's a fun idea for the comments though, if you guys are curious or interested in what kind of engagement or interaction I'm looking for on this channel. Tell me about the scariest thing that has ever happened to you in your life. The scariest thing you can remember, if you feel comfortable sharing. And does it still affect you today? Do you still have trauma? Because I don't know about you, but I'm never taking the elevators here again. I will walk several flights to and from my apartment if I have to. It's good exercise. I'm not going to complain. But so the scariest thing that you've ever gone through, like, does it still affect you to this day? Does it affect your behavior? Or how did you overcome it? How did you overcome, like, the fear or the trauma, or, you know, yeah, just anyway, you know where I'm going with this. Tell me all about your scary experience. I'd love to hear about it in the comments. That's all for this video, so please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. I'm kind of fun sometimes. I'm still getting the hang of this vlogging thing again, and I'm going to experiment with a couple different video formats coming up soon, so that'll be exciting. Please stay tuned.